So last week we stopped right over there. Say, however, whenever mediums themselves want to questions, it's pretty much in the middle of the dissertation from Erastus and Timothy, what the role of the medium in communications. It'll be very hard for us to start from the beginning because it's long and it's just one single topic as the item 225. But in this topic of discussion, Erastus and Timothy, they wanted to stress to us that the medium, although his and her functions to be an intermediary between the two planes of existence, it's not just a little pen at the hands of the spirit, because the medium is an eternal spirit that carries all his or her accumulated experiences, intelligences, prejudices, difficulties, knowledges, and all of these things somehow will be, at least for a minimal degree, impregnated in the message that the spirit is transmitting. There is always a minimum component of the medium, because the medium, again, is a living being. Someone has his or her own thoughts. And the role of the medium, even at the most unconscious level, is still kind of an interpreter of the thoughts of the spirit. The medium is one who will pretty much dress those thoughts with words, and those words, the style of the writing, the musicality of the prose will be pertinent to the style of the medium very often. Other mediums who are able to be completely absent? No. Are those who can be almost completely absent? Yes. The more educated, the more well prepared medium will be the one who will leave the least of his own input on the communication. Does not mean that the medium will alter the message. That's not what's happening. It is just going to use his or her own style, her own vocabulary to express those thoughts. Okay. In the very last part of this topic, Kardec going to give a synthesis of what Erastus and Timothy spoke. So for those who are not here last week, they'll be able to catch the snaps from Erastus, from Kardec. Okay. So right, are you okay to read?
Yes, yes, absolutely. We start
Okay.
whenever, on that
Yes.
paragraph, right?
However, yeah.
Whenever. Oh, however, okay. However, whenever mediums themselves want to question us through whatever means, it would be good for them to reflect seriously beforehand in order to ask us questions methodically, making our work of responding easier, because according to what was stated in a previous instruction, your minds are frequently inextricably disorder, making it difficult and tedious to move about in the maze of your thoughts. Whenever questions must be asked through a third party, it would be a good and appropriate idea to communicate them beforehand to the medium so that he or she may identify with the spirit to be questioned, becoming impregnated, so to speak, with its thoughts. For then we will find much easier to respond, thanks to the affinity between our perispirit and that of the medium who is to serve as our interpreter. Of course, we can discuss mathematics through a medium that is completely unfamiliar with the subject, but almost always the spirit of the medium possesses such knowledge in a latent state. That is, knowledge that is personal to the fluidic being and not to the incarnate being, since the current body is an inadequate or rebellious instrument for this type of knowledge. The same applies to astronomy, poetry, medicine, and various languages, and with all the other knowledge peculiar to the human species. Finally, we still have the tedious task of preparation applied to mediums that are completely unfamiliar with the subject under consideration, which is that of putting the letters and words together as is done in typesetting. As we have already stated, spirits do not need to clothe their thoughts in words. They perceive and transmit them naturally amongst themselves. Incarnate beings, on the contrary, can only communicate through thought translated into words, while letters, words, nouns, verbs, and sentences are required for your perception. Even mentally, no visible or tangible form is required for us. Radius and Timothy. Continue?
No, thanks.
Okay.
So we're gonna go backwards here. We, spirit, we are the generator of thoughts created in our mind, which belong to the spirit. And thought is energy. In order to share that energy with someone, we have to make it perceivable to someone, right? So if right now I have a thought in my mind and I want you guys to receive as it's happening right now, I have to find means to make you perceive that this energy. Okay? And the way that we do is through dressing those those thoughts with words. And words you form sentences, and sentences you form paragraphs, and so forth and so on, right? Now, once I form these words, I can use my vocal apparatus and speak, verbalize, and you can hear it. Or I can use my hands and write it. It will be the same words, spoken or written. In the spiritual world, we don't need that. In the spiritual world, we can transmit our energies to the target directly, and the target will receive those thoughts. And Kardec says something, or Kardec no, Erasmus or Timothy says something that is very important for us to think. Incarnate beings, on the contrary, can only communicate through thought, translate into words, while letters, words, nouns, verbs, and sentences are required to your perception, even mentally. This is the thing, that even mentally, even when we with our own thoughts keep it to ourselves, we kind of trace those thoughts for ourselves, even in mentally, because it's so abstract to the idea of having a thought without words. Can you guys conceptualize that? Because I can't. If I think of something, let's say a window, I immediately have to have that image of that hole on the wall or that open space in the wall with the word window. That's the only way that I can really mentalize. And even when we discarnate, even when we go back into the spiritual world, we retain this because we are so conditioned. And some of us are so conditioned that not only by mentally we will put those words, but when we want to communicate with another spirit in the spiritual world, who will we kind of speaking as if we are using a vocal apparatus. But indeed we are not, because you don't need it. Because perhaps you don't even have a physical, a vocal apparatus. Because perhaps, I don't know, perhaps there is not even air over there to be the vehicle that let no sound goes through. Sound has to travel in a medium, and that medium here is air. So I don't even know if there's air in the spiritual world to be the vehicle for transmission of sound waves. I don't even know. And I don't say there is or there isn't. Say that I don't know. Okay, let's be very clear here. But has been taught to us that the spirit doesn't need it. But we are so conditioned to express our thoughts using words and using and other transmit those thoughts using the vocal apparatus, use our mouth, that once you get back to the spiritual world, you continue to do the same for a long time, perhaps throughout our errant state. Which nothing wrong with that, as long as you communicate, you're okay, right? Could end up in the spiritual world and somebody put a tape over our perispiritual mouth and you feel that you cannot communicate anymore, which is not true, but you're so conditioned that you may feel that you are not able to. The same way that the spirit is able to walk, let's say, through fire. Most of us won't have the courage to even try it because we are conditioned not to do so. Now, the medium may wants to interact with the spirit, him or herself. So let's say that if I'm a medium, that's the very beginning of this reading, that I am a medium and my role is to be the interpreter of the thoughts of the spirit. But I myself as a medium, perhaps I have a question with that spirit, perhaps I want to have some kind of interaction. Is it possible? Yes. Is it easy? Not so much so, because of the spirits living here, because of the complexity and difficulty of our own brain. You see how we have difficulty in concentrating and keeping a mono thought, concentrating on one topic and not deviate. It's so difficult. The same that they find, at least that's what they tell us here, in our brain. It's very hard for them to get what we want to express with the spirits at a time. So we need to be very organized as a medium if we want to pass any question or any comment, whatever, to the spirit. We need to be very organized. We should think ahead. We should prepare ourselves ahead of it. And the same thing if we're going to receive as a medium, if others want to ask me to have some interaction with the spirit, we should have to do that ahead of time to prepare ourselves so the spirits can better get what we are trying to say over there. There has already been discussed. The part to say, of course, we can discuss mathematics through a mirror is completely unfamiliar. Um, we discussed that already, that the spirits with goodwill, they will use whatever instrument they have at their hand. Naturally, as has been discussed, they will rather have a better prepared, the best possible prepared instrument to deliver their thoughts. But if it's the best is not available, they will use the second best, the third best, the fourth best, and so on. They will use what is available to them. We have cases of mediums who are able to perform things, to write things at a during the mediumistic trance that is not really compatible with that same medium outside of the trance. Someone perhaps has no understanding of mathematics, like no a more advanced mathematics, may be able to write one of those equations there with a bunch of Greek letters that we don't even know what those things means in a mediumistic trance, and in the conscious state, they won't be able ever to write something like that. What's happening? Is the spirit really giving those information to that spirit, to that medium? No. Likely that spirit, that medium has conquered that knowledge in previous experiences, previous lives, and not being used during this reincarnation. But it's there in its memory bank and this file over there, and the spirit has means to retrieve those information, to retrieve those old files over there and use it. If the spirit has very limited, it becomes very difficult. If the medium has very limited, it becomes very difficult for the spirit to express its thoughts, become very tedious. And Kardec clearly can use the expression, the example, as if the medium doesn't know, have a very limited vocabulary, doesn't know words, the spirit is going to have to spell letter by letter. And if the medium can even write, the spirit is going to have to hold the hand of that medium and help it write. Of course, it's an exaggeration, but it's the example that is very clear for us to understand here. Okay, comments, questions? So let's see what Kardec says here now. So everything that I said, the whole item 225, again, it comes from the spirits. It comes from Erastus, who was a friend of Paul of Tarsus. He was from Corinth, and he was a administrator, public administrator over there, become a follower of Jesus, and was a very good friend of Paul of Tarsus, helped Paul of Tarsus many occasions. And Timothy was, I believe, a nephew of Paul, who also converted to Christianity, that was very close to Paul, and Paul actually would call him his son in faith.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, we find him on Paul and Stephen, but I'm not sure, completely sure.
Yeah, he was one who was to be circumcised.
Okay. Okay. This analysis of the role of mediums and the processes through which they communicate is both clear and logical. From it, we may derive the principle that a spirit does not utilize the ideas of the medium, but rather the necessary materials present in the medium's mind for expressing its own thoughts, and that the richer the mind, the easier the communication becomes. When a spirit expresses itself in a language familiar to the medium, It finds the words already formed and ready for the translation of its ideas. If it communicates in a foreign language, it does not have words at its disposal, but only letters. It is then that the Spirit is obligated to dictate letter by letter, exactly as if we wanted to make a person who did not know even a word of it to write in German. If the medium did not know how to read or write, not even letters would be at the Spirit's disposal. Then the Spirit must guide the hand as one would do with a child. In such a case, there is a material difficulty that is even harder to overcome. These phenomena are possible, and we have numerous examples of them. However, it should be understood that this manner of proceeding does not lend itself to lengthy and rapid communications, for which spirits must prefer the easiest instruments possible, or as they themselves have said, well-equipped mediums from their point of view. If those who request such phenomena in order to be convinced had attempted to study the theory first, they would know about the special conditions under which they are produced.
Okay, so Kazak pretty much gave a summary of everything that was discussed in 1925. And it stresses over here that, again, we have to be very clear that, and I quote, the Spirit does not utilize the ideas of the medium. The Spirit is passing his or her own thoughts, and he will use the medium as the instrument to dressing, to quoting those thoughts, so it can be shared with others. It can be written, or it can be verbal, it can be spoken. And it's almost like if the Spirit is going to use a let's just going to use a PC, to use a computer that I have in front of me. And let's say there is a computer loaded with all kinds of softwares. You know, it has everything over there. If I want to do some calculation, it has a calculator. If I wanted to see or write something in a different language, it has 2 or 3 languages that it makes good translations and writing different. So I have that wonderful computer in front of me that it facilitates the means that I can write my thoughts. If that computer is limited, it does not have, let's say, translator. Okay, I can only write in one language. It does not have a calculator. I cannot make any calculations. It makes my writing a little bit more difficult. I am the creator of the thought, the Spirit's creator of the thought. I'm gonna use an instrument, a computer. That Spirit's gonna use an instrument, the medium. The more evolved, so to say, the more eloquent is my computer, the easier it is for me to write. The more eloquent, the more evolved, the smarter, so to say, is that medium, the easier it is the ability of that medium to express its thoughts through that medium. And again, let's keep in mind that when we are talking about education here, you're not only limited to the education of that medium has received in this present incarnation, because it may have a very vast knowledge from previous experience that are not being expressed on this reincarnation. Example that I can use is very clear, is Chico Xavier, that we used that already. I think that's it. Any questions, comments? So we move on to chapter 20. that deals with the moral influence of the medium in communications. Okay.
The medium's moral influence. 226. Number 1. Does the development of mediumship have any relation to the medium's moral development? No. The faculty per se is organic and therefore independent of morality. However, the same does not apply concerning its use, which can be good or bad according to the medium's character.
I think we covered that a million times, but it's always good to be reminded that mediumship is an organic disposition. It's something that has to do with our ability to expand our perispirit, our ability to have this open window to the spiritual world that is greater than the average mediums out there. And of course, talk here about ostensive mediums, right? And that, like most power, most faculties, it's neutral. You can say it's good, it's bad. The use that how you use it is what qualify it being good or bad. And a medium may be a medium with at all levels of moral or intellectual development. It may be highly ignorant on both and still be an ostensive medium. It may be highly educated on both and still be an ostensive medium, because again, it's an organic equality. And of course, the question is why, and Kardec will answer that soon, or will question that soon as well. Number 2.
Okay. Number 2, it has always been said that mediumship is a gift from God, a grace and a divine favor. Then why isn't it a privilege of moral individuals only? And why are there unworthy persons who are endowed with it to the highest degree, but who use it badly? All our faculties are favors for which we should thank God, for there are some persons who do not possess them. You can just as well ask why God has given good eyesight to criminals, dexterity to thieves, or eloquence to those who only use it for evil. The same applies to mediumship. Unworthy individuals have been endowed with it because they need it more than others in order to better themselves. Do you think that God refuses the means of salvation to the guilty? Instead, he multiplies such means at every step by placing them right in their hands. It is their responsibility to take advantage of them. However, didn't this traitor Judas perform wonders and cure diseases as a disciple? God provided him with this gift so that he might afterwards see more clearly the odiousness of his betrayal.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I don't know how historically this idea that mediumship is a gift from God, is a grace, is a divine favor. So, but definitely it's a taboo, right? Because if it's organic, anyone may have it, regardless of its moral qualities or disqualities. And to suggest that God give this to one, this to another, refuse to give this to A but gives to B, would create a God who have preferences, who treat his brothers and sisters differently. And we see ostensive mediums having the so-called mediumship of atonement. Go ask them if it's really a grace, if they're really enjoying it. The difficulties that mediumship can bring to many brothers and sisters. We can ask mediums that deals with the wonderful work of assistance, of rescue, um, the literally bodily pain that they go through, if it is such really a, a, a wonderful thing to have. So mediumship may be actually a hard thing to do. It may be actually an atonement for some. And the divine laws that here is as symbolized as God will provide this attribute, this ability, this organic faculty for those who may need it or for those who may use it as a mission. And those who may use it as a mission out of need, or those who may use it as a mission out of their already conquer the moral qualities and come here to assist us. Okay, so there's many, many different ways that one will be a medium and one will come in with this organic disposition. We may very often, since this is a planet of trials and expiations, is a planet where we come to learn hard lessons. Is a planet where you have the opportunity to repair some serious mistakes of the past. One would, by law of probability, imagine the most mediums are dissembled like we are. We are all here undergoing difficult trials or not so difficult trials. And one of those trials may be exactly to have this organic disposition. One must remember that medicine is for the sick. And mediumship may be exactly the medicine that one of us may need. But more than a privilege, it may be a need for that specific spirit to have that blessed opportunity of having the attribute of mediumship. Just being very careful over here, not to think and not to be judgmental, not trying to figure things out. Okay, I mean, we know many mediums and we are not in the position to try to figure out, oh, his mediumship is of this kind, and mediumship is of atonement. Oh, she's definitely a missionary. We do not know. We don't have the slightest idea. We have no way to even start to think about those things. And again, it may be all of them together. Okay, we do not know, but we do know there is a blessed, wonderful opportunity to receive valuable lessons, to be exposable to extremely enlightening experience for that spirit who has that opportunity to come as a medium. For some, a mission, for some, a bitter medicine. Comments, questions? Number 3.
Okay. Number 3, will mediums who put their faculties to bad use and who do not utilize them for the good, or who do not take advantage of them for their own education, suffer the consequences? If they put them to bad use, they will be doubly punished, since they will have lost the opportunity to profit from a way of enlightening themselves. A person who sees clearly and stumbles anywhere is more culpable than someone who is blind and falls into a ditch.
It's the parable of the talents, right? Give the talent 5 to 1, 2 to 1, 1 to the other, and the one who received the one chose to to bear it and was punished for it. Not repent, punish here is again, it's a metaphor, right? But if any attributes, any talent is given to others, to put it to use, it's put to good use. If one who bears it does nothing with it, is already banished. Can you imagine one who does evil with it? Of course, we will have to deal with the consequences of its choices. And a caveat here that is inbuilt in this answer but not clear is that a medium not going to be thrown here with this faculty in the dark. Again, you cannot imagine that the divine law symbolizing as God would send us here with this wonderful tool and not have any kind of preparation to use it, and to be somewhat prepared to use it, be well instructed on the risks and benefits of the things you have to be careful with, things that you must avoid, just like we do to anyone. You know, if you give an instrument to someone to use it, you have to teach them how to use it. You have to teach them the risks, you know. Give someone a real good sharp knife to someone who have never used anything. It's a high risk of cutting his or her hand. So you have to prepare people to. And to imagine that the needle is going to be thrown here without any preparation of being advised and being assisted along the way is completely unimaginable, right? Even in cases of atonement, there will be some kind of preparation, there will be some kind of assistance along the way. Now, if you choose to misuse it, if you choose to sell it short or for personal gains, you can have to deal with the consequences of it naturally. Again, it's neutral. Good or bad is how you use it. Okay, comments, questions?
Okay, number 4. There are mediums who quite often receive spontaneous communications that are about the same subject, addressing certain moral questions, for example, related to certain defects. Is there some purpose for this? Yes, and the purpose is to enlighten them concerning and constantly repeated subject or to correct them of certain defects. This is why spirits always speak to some about pride and others about charity, for only persistence will finally succeed in opening their eyes. There are no mediums who misuse their ability out of ambition or self-interest, or who disgrace it with some essential defect such as selfishness, pride, or frivolousness, who do not time and again receive warnings from spirits. Most of the time, unfortunately, they do not apply such warnings to themselves. Spirits nearly always give their lessons in a reserved, indirect way in order to allow for greater merit to those who know how to apply and to take advantage of them. However, some persons are so blind and proud that they do not recognize themselves in the picture they have right in front of them. Furthermore, if a spirit gives them to understand that they themselves are the subject of the lesson, they become angry and call the spirit a liar or a joker, enough to prove that the spirit is correct.
Okay. Very important question, very important topic for the mediums and again for us who are in close association with mediums, with us who are receiving many messages from the spiritual world. If it walks like a duck, if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, what is it? No, the obvious is there on your face and and you choose to think that it is one. Okay. The spirits keep coming and giving a message that talks about how the necessity of being more patient. Then it brings the topic of the values of patience repeatedly. Every week receive 3 or 4 things that deals with patience. Are they trying to tell you something? Is it good for your neighbor? Is it good for the bus driver? All the messages is first for the medium, him or herself. Now, if one has the humbleness in the intelligence, the intelligence of the heart, and to to see that it's a duck, one will receive it and will apply it. And it's very important. With what the answer from the Spirit here says that let's say there are no mediums who misuse their ability out of ambition or self-interest, or who disgrace it with some essential defects such as selfishness, pride, or frivolousness, who do not, time and again, receive warnings from spirits. Most of the time, unfortunately, they do not apply such warning for themselves. That goes with what I said before. It is inconceivable to imagine that we will be thrown here in this physical world with the ability of mediumship, not being well prepared for it and not being assisted along the way. So if you are misusing it, they will give us warn. They will try to get our attention, remind us the true values of this attribute, how it should be used, what is the objectives of it. But again, once we lose ourselves in our pride and our selfishness, in our vanity, we start to do disregard of those things, or receive and say, oh no, it's indeed for my neighbor, it's indeed for the bus driver, not me. I'm the king of patience. All this every week messages that deals with patience, it is because I have to pass along for those impatient people out there. Unfortunately, and that's the comment that Kardec mentions over here. No, as with Christ said, no, you see the little thing in the eyes of others, and you see the whole tree in our own eyes. So yes, the spirits will give us warnings, will try us, and very often provide us messages that deal with topics of vices that you need to correct in ourselves at more urgent matter because we have so many vices to correct. Comments? Let's move on.
Okay. Number 5. When they receive general lessons with no personal application, don't mediums act as passive instruments to serve for the instruction of others? Almost always, such warnings and advice are not directed toward them, but to others whom we can only reach through their mediumship. Nonetheless, mediums should try to profit from them themselves unless they are blinded with vanity. Don't think that mediumship is given only to correct one or two individuals. Rather, the objective is greater. It is meant for all humankind. As individuals, mediums are very unimportant instruments. Thus, when we provide instructions of general interest, we utilize mediums who offer us the required abilities. But you can be very sure that the time will come when good mediums will be quite common and good spirits will no longer have to use faulty instruments.
Okay, so as Joana Jans told Duval was that the message are first for to you. I'm telling to you, you. You share with others because you want to, right? But not all the messages are absolutely for the medium itself. And two, who among the stars over here can say that I no longer need lessons that of patience. I don't no longer need to hear about humbleness. I, I am the king of humbleness already. I don't. I am the true example of charity. I don't need to receive that more. The lessons or messages that use of charity anymore. Again, we are all here reincarnated in this planet is because those lessons are still very valuable to most of us, mediums and non-mediums, ostensive mediums and non-ostensive mediums. So usually the great majority of lessons have a universal character. It's good for everyone. Now, it's of course the more well-prepared, well-educated mediums will be able to associate it with more elevated spirits who will bring those messages of universal value that can be actually be utilized to educate a multitude of people. When you have Xavier receiving messages from Emmanuel, the quality of messages, there is no, in none of those books, none of those messages, things that you can say, oh, this is very private. This has a limited, this is for a limited audience. We can see in there a completely universal value that is for everyone of all cultures, of all religions, of all beliefs, of all ethnicities, and because it's so universal, it's something that is pertinent to humans living in this planet. So we receive when Deval receives books from Joana de Anjos that deals with the psychology. It is a psychology pertinent for the human race, not for one limited group. It's not for Deval only. It's not for that small group in Mention of the Way only. It's for the general public. Now they are eloquent, they are so well prepared, and the mediums are so well prepared that can be, all those messages be cataloged and put in books and be spread throughout the world. But you can't, and I challenge anyone to pick up any message from the manual or from João de Lange and say, oh, this is really for limited group of individuals. They have a universal character, and they are for everyone. And again, the better the instrument, the better be the outcome of the message. And the outcome of the message will be so damn good that it should be published in books and be made available to everyone and everywhere. Okay, questions, comments? Okay, number 6.
Number 6, if a medium's moral quality repels less evolved spirits, why do mediums gifted with good qualities transmit erroneous or even crass responses? Do you know all the secrets of their soul? Besides, without being nasty, they can be irresponsible and frivolous instead, and they could also be in need of a lesson in order to warn them.
Okay, also very important. If a medium's moral qualities repels less evolved spirits, why do mediums gifted good qualities transmit erroneous or even false or even crass responses? Okay. The first thing to think here is a well-educated medium, a well-prepared medium is the instrument who will pass the thoughts of the spirit, putting the minimum of him or herself in the equation. So if the spirit, let's say, going to the highest over here, if Chico Xavier always associate with highly evolved spirits, uh, has a angry, rebellious, ignorant spirits seeking to communicate with him, he may allow it. And being a good medium, he will put those thoughts in words to completely fidelity or to that spirit. Now, in this case, that spirit you have an absolutely wonderful opportunity of educating him or herself, or receiving tremendous amount of loving energies that it's been perhaps the greatest treatment that spirit you ever receive, right? And naturally, that nasty message will not can be used into anything. It will be destroyed because it has no value, right? But the area, I'm going to the highest, serve as an example that even a spirit of the quality of, a medium of the quality of Shikshava may receive a spirit not so well prepared as a treatment, as an opportunity again to receive those vibrations, those energies of love. But most us, the average mediums over here, it may be as a warning to us. It may be as a training for us. And very important, what it says, do you know what the secrets of the soul? That medium that we see come to the center with fidelity, doing the work of charity out there, is a spirit like us, as its skeletons in his and her closet, like all of us, that needs to deal with issues of vices that may not even be noted by most of us, but it's there, and then the medium is having an opportunity, because it's ready to do so, to deal with those issues. And very often, to deal with those issues, it will be associated with spirits who kind of have the same kind of vice, so they can deal with it. But again, I warn and be very careful that we cannot make any inference and any judgment and reach any conclusion but for the kind of spirits a medium receives, because we, again, the question is very important. Do we know what the secrets of the soul? We know nothing. We know the very tip of the iceberg only. And we need to be very careful, very respectful, not to try to reach conclusions from the messages that a medium receives, from the association of the kind of spirits a medium is receiving. But a highly educated spirit, a well-blessed medium, someone who is really vibrating high, may receive lower spirits for many different reasons, for their own need of that medium, or for the need of that spirit. We have 3 minutes left. I don't want to move on. Here's any questions, any comments? Okay, if not, then we can make our prayers.
To our spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels, with our hearts full of gratitude as we gather here again tonight, continuing our studies from the Medium's book and the Spirit's book. We thank you, dear Lord, as we continue to open our hearts to understand who we are and what is important to us. We ask as we continue throughout the week to meet again throughout our classes, to continue our studies. We thank the Spiritist Group of New York for all that they've done, for the teachers, the mentors, the mediums. We pray and ask for the protection of all, for the families and loved ones. We pray, dear Father, also for those that are still going through difficulties and challenges with this pandemic. We continue to pray with strength and courage that our Father is always with us. And most important, that we're not alone. To continue with our prayers and work with our studies throughout the week. We thank you, dear Lord. May we continue to pray for the United States Spiritist Federation, the United States Spiritist Council, for our teachers who are so dedicated. We are grateful for them also. We thank you, and we ask as we leave here today to return again next week to continue our studies. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.